Back to college conference realignment, man. With the I have not dug much into it, but it seems like Texas and Oklahoma. I can't. I don't know if I can say it's a foregone conclusion, but barring something, they look like they're headed to the SEC. And man, you talk about turning the SEC into a bigger juggernaut. Yeah. Because right now the Big Ten is still the biggest money maker of all conferences.
Right.
But that would change things. Texas has the largest budget of any college in the country. And Oklahoma is a program great on both basketball and football, man. But Texas is actually the crown jewel of that one. The Big Ten, what do they do? Where's that going to leave them? And there was talks about that up there with that stuff going on. And I'll be honest with you, Kevin Warren has not done a lot to leave me thinking that the Big Ten's in great hands with him. He just always seems to be a step behind with everything. Last year, all the issues it had, he was a step behind, all the fiascos that happened with the Big Ten. And he just, I'm like, okay, if he got through that, well, he had an opportunity to come out at Big Ten Media Days and really set a tone, and he didn't. He didn't seem to have a COVID plan. It's like, wow, you get a second chance, and you look like you've just been hibernating since you blew the first one. But it's just weird to see where that goes. I don't know how we're going to end up because football drives this train.
Yes.
And that's what for because most schools, that's what's the moneymaker. Indiana's a little different, has been a little different, but for the most part, football is who drives the train at these schools. And I mean, eventually I can see them just going regionally, just, cutting the country up into quarters and doing it that way. You'd have the Southeast, the Southwest, South Northwest, but that Southeast is going to be loaded. You can't really do that. I don't know. I don't know.
Think about this, right? And who, I'm not saying this is the case, but you take a person like a Coach Chris Beard, who was at Texas Tech. Did he foresee, or did he see things down the road as he sought out the job at UT, University of Texas at Austin? Did he foresee a realignment to a different conference? Therefore, now, if Texas OU is joining SEC, now he has nothing to do with the Big 12. He's in a whole nother region. Did you foresee that? Not saying again that was the case, but again, Texas always been a big school, and a lot of times you got, me knowing this now, a lot of students who love sports, they go to those schools because of football. They want to go to a sports school. And football is pretty much the reason why, as you just said, it comes from the biggest budget. So when you take the Big Ten, I saw talks of some Pac-12 teams. I'm like, wow, how? I mean, that, because to me, it was interesting when Penn State joined, even though that's more so Western, not too far from Ohio. But now you talk about some teams in the Pac-12, like, I'm trying to figure out what teams, how would you realign that? It's just interesting.
Yeah, Notre Dame forever has seemed they're a Big Ten team. They are the quintessential. They are the quintessential Big Ten team, but they won't do it because they want their independence in football, which is a joke. I mean, come on, in this day and age.
Well, you said it. In this day and age, it's a joke. Right back then, they
were getting it because they were getting the money. NBC was writing them that check.
That's right.
But they've been treated like they're the Notre Dame of the 40s and the 50s and the 80s. They're not. They're not, and they still get that pass. And I'm like, man, y'all got to stop giving them that pass.
But listen, it goes right back to Reed Shepherd legacy. It's legacy. Yeah, it's not what you've done lately. It's what you're still doing.
Well, we can say that for Indiana.
Right. Legacy, right? I mean, and that's the saving grace in a sense. It's, you've done it so long, it works. We got a budget. Let's keep it. but you've been really the stepchild of the Big East. You know, you go to and you've been to, you know, so many different trials. It hadn't worked for you, right? Because of legacy, right? So I'm with you.
Yeah, Chris says, I know let's expand by adding USC, Oregon, Nevada, increased market, but is this the Big 10 or 14 or 22? No to expansion, but you can't say no to expansion. You don't have a choice now. It's either expand or get left behind.
That's right. That's right.
And expansion has to do with television and television contracts.
Right. Exactly.
Because the more teams you have, the more teams opportunities you have to be on whatever network you're aligned with. Well, the Big Ten has their own and their own relationship with Fox, but it's more TV money, man. More TV money. That's what it's all about.
And more subscription money. People got to understand this. Each Big Ten school got $52 million a couple years ago. Win, lose, draw. The teams that sucked, they got 52 million. The teams that won got 52. So who's the big winner, right? That's what we have to understand this and go beneath the surface a little bit to understand subscription services are driving this market. It's driving the share, right?
Because nobody is handing those other teams, but those teams that are not in the Big Ten are not getting handed checks for $52 million.
$52 million. Think about that. What can a school do with that money, right? And that's kind of where it's at. It has nothing to do with athletics more so than what you got off of $9.99, $8.99.
But now, and so this footprint that we're so used to of, you know, regions is almost going away. Like I said, you've got West Virginia in the Big 12. Right. Exactly. They got to cut across two conferences to get to their next conference.
Exactly. Yeah.
It just, I don't know where it's going to end. The SEC will be set forever. They get Texas and Oklahoma in there. It's like, they're good.
Well, see, that's what I was telling you when I was growing up sports wise in Miami. University of Miami was the Notre Dame, right? So like they were independent, right? So I mean, because you were so good and they were always independent. So even in basketball, they played, I would call a random schedule before I've known basketball like I know it now. It was always a random schedule against like mid-major schools. You know, before I think the first conference they joined was the Big East. Right. But yeah, so it's so interesting that I think you have to be part of a consortium group that can really support you financially, that can really help you do those things like recruit, because that's what it comes down to, facilities. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
And with the Big Ten, like Josh mentions, Cincinnati here being solid in football and basketball, which they are, and that is important. But again, Big Ten schools, you better be one hell of an academic school. Big Ten is not just going to take anybody. That's why I said I don't mean to offend Southern listeners, but that's why Louisville had no shot of ever getting into the Big Ten. Right. If you look at them, they're ranked way down as a school. They're not getting into Big Ten. The Big Ten is not going to just take anybody. You are going to have a level of excellence in academics as well, because there are no weak academic schools in the Big Ten. None that I'm aware of.
Correct. No, so you're right. I mean, it is what it is. So there's a criteria list that has to be made. And
that's why Notre Dame is such a perfect partner.
That's right. That's right.
But who else? Right. But who else? It's like, who else are you going to squeeze into that?
Could you imagine a Indiana rivalry, 4-day Indiana, Purdue, Notre Dame? I mean, some type of game mix, football, basketball, whatever sport. I mean, you think about that. Right in the heart of Indiana, in a sense, and it's never been a part or thought of. At least I know, as far as being considered in the Big Ten.